For much of England and Wales, dry and clear and quite a bit colder than last night. It was a cold front that moved through, hence why temperatures will be dropping down into single figures. So a fresher start on Thursday, but a beautifully sunny start for a good part of England and Wales. Quite a bit of cloud coming into Wales, northwest England with some outbreaks of rain, and we'll always see showers coming into western Scotland and across Northern Ireland, particularly here during the afternoon. Not many showers at all across southern England, eastern England, northeast Scotland with some sunny spells. Temperatures in the southeast may get close to 20 Celsius. Still feeling a little cooler because of the strength of the breeze. It stays fairly breezy during Thursday night. More rain crosses Scotland and pushes back down towards Northern Ireland. This is another line of rain, another weather front, which then sinks south on Friday. Ahead of that on Friday, a few more showers compared to Thursday. Parts of the Midlands seeing one or two, and across southern England as well, ahead of this rain band, which will bring a spell of heavy rain sinking south across the country. Again, ahead of it though, temperatures with a bit of sunshine might get up to 18 or 19 Celsius, feeling cooler behind that because again, that is a cold front that scoots away as we head through Friday night, and this little ridge of high pressure at the moment promises most places a fine bright day on Saturday.
Weekday afternoons on GB News, we've got the whole of the UK covered. From 12 to 3, it's GB News Day with me, Mark Longhurst.
And me, Gloria Di Piero. You'll get the very latest on everything that's been going on across our great nation.
And from 3 till 6, watch out for GB News Live with me, Patrick Christys. I'm not here to mess around. With all the biggest topics and guests, you will always be up to date. GB News Day and GB News Live from 12 p.m.
Only on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello there, it's Eamon Holmes here from Breakfast on GB News. We're not just on your television and your screens, you know.
We're on DAB plus digital radio, so you can listen to your favourite shows on the move.
If you've not yet listened to GB News Radio, it's very simple. We're on your radio player and tune-in apps, on your smart speaker, phone or tablet, or online at gbnews.uk.
Take us with you wherever you go. GB News Radio.
You never have to miss a moment of the People's Channel.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch.
You've been cancelled. Join the club.
Oh my goodness me! And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
Hello, I'm Simon Evans. Join me on GB News for Headliners at 11 p.m, where I'll be joined by two of the country's top comedians as we take a look at tomorrow's newspapers tonight. If it's a big story, we'll be covering it, I guarantee, but we'll also have some fun along the way. That's GB News Headliners at 11 p.m. We won't put you to sleep, unlike some of the other paper review shows out there. So join us, 11 p.m, 7 nights a week.
Happy Wednesday. Yes, it's me, Laurence Fox, still here sitting in for Nigel Farage, sorry. Coming up tonight, has her maiden speech as Prime Minister prevented the Truss premiership descending into further chaos and demonstrated that the lady is no longer for turning? Or as the Greenpeace protesters showed up during the speech, may there be more bumps in the road ahead? Also, on the programme, we'll talk to Christian nurse Amy Gallagher, who refuses to kowtow to the racist ideology of anti-racism, riddle me this, which pervades the NHS and all of our other national institutions. I will also talk to journalist Andy No about Moaning Markle's latest comments made to the 7.5 people who still listen to her podcast, the other half being Harry. And on Talking Pints, I'll be joined by Mick Mulvaney, former White House Chief of Staff to President Donald Trump, and we'll talk about the Don Meisters last night, conversation with him. Oh, still prickly from that one. First, though, the news with Polly Middlehurst.
Laurence, thanks very much indeed. And your top story tonight, the Prime Minister has promised to make hard choices to get the British economy moving again. And a warning for those of you watching on television, this part of the story does contain some flashing images. Well, Liz Truss at Conservative Party conference today in Birmingham was heckled by Greenpeace protesters who were quickly ejected from Conservative Party conference. She described the demonstrators as enemies of enterprise. Party members responded with applause to show their support, and she went on to reassure the party. But both she and the Chancellor were in complete lockstep with one another.
I have three priorities for our economy: growth, growth and growth. Growth means more money in people's pockets. It means businesses creating new jobs. Growth means people can feel secure and they can plan for their future. Fundamentally, growth helps people fulfil their hopes and their dreams. And that's why our dynamic new Chancellor and I will be taking action in three areas.
The Prime Minister in Birmingham today. Well, in news away from politics, man who caused a large gas explosion which resulted in the death of a toddler in Lancashire has been jailed for 15 years. Darren Greenham used an angle grinder to cut a gas pipe which he planned to sell as scrap metal. He was drunk and under the influence of drugs at the time. 2-year-old George Hines, who lived with his family next door, died in the blast, which happened in May last year. A French court has cleared 3 British teachers of any wrongdoing over the death of a 12-year-old girl who drowned while on a school trip in 2015. Jessica Lawson died after a pontoon capsized in a lake near the city of Limoges. Stephen Lane, Chantal Lewis and Daisy Strathers were found not guilty of the French equivalent of manslaughter by gross negligence. Joe Biden has travelled to Florida in the States to pledge support to the state as it recovers from Hurricane Ian. Joe Biden and his wife Jill, in fact, arriving at the state to survey the storm. They surveyed it by helicopter before meeting with residents and disaster relief officials, and he's scheduled to meet the Florida State Governor, Ron DeSantis, later on. Over 100 people have died after Hurricane Ian hit, and nearly 400,000 homes and businesses have been without power. Police have named the teenager who died after being attacked in Gateshead. 14-year-old Thomas Oleszak was found with serious injuries after a suspected stabbing on Monday night, but he later died in hospital. Another 14-year-old has been arrested on suspicion of murder, and a 13-year-old girl is being questioned on suspicion of assisting an offender. Rail passengers are have endured another day of travel disruption today. ASLEF and TSSA union members are again striking over pay, jobs and conditions, affecting services across the country. ASLEF General Secretary Mick Mulvaney says the industrial action will continue until the government intervenes.
It's about the people you represent. They haven't had a pay rise for 3 years. Our employers are privateers. We don't work for the government. We don't work for the DfT. They seem to have done a rather corrupt deal with the government where they're not allowed to offer us a cost of living increase. So when we talk to our employers, they say you've got to talk to the government. And when we talk to the government, they say we've got to talk to our employers. After 3 years, our members have had enough.
Now, the actor Alec Baldwin and the production company behind the movie Rust have reached an undisclosed settlement with the estate of the cinematographer Helena Hutchins. Miss Hutchins was killed on the set of the film in October last year after a prop gun Mr. Baldwin was holding discharged. Lawyers representing Miss Hutchins' husband, Matthew, and their son sued for wrongful death. The decision means filming of the movie will continue. And here, Prince William has visited England's football centre to mark its 10th anniversary. The royal visit recognises St George's Park as being the home of English football since 2012. Prince William, who's the president of the Football Association, met with staff and players at the facility. He also spoke with England manager Gareth Southgate to discuss the team's preparation for the World Cup. That's it. You're up to date on TV, online and on DAB+ radio. You're with GB News, the People's Channel, where Now Farage is brought to you tonight by Laurence Fox.
A year or so ago, I was sat on a patio in a rather large and expensive house in the south of France, listening to the impassioned tones of a wise old liberal berating the sluggish global response to the imminent climate catastrophe. At various points during this virtuous lecture, my eyes would wander slightly from his face and over his shoulder towards the 50-foot-long, uncovered swimming pool in the huge and beautiful garden, steam gently rising off the surface, even on this hot summer evening. In between serious nods at emphatic moments, I pondered whether it might be worth raising the issue of the gentleman's own contribution to the imminent climate apocalypse. But having done so in the past, I have learned that we do not often appreciate being confronted by the practical consequences of our own ideology. So on he went, and then off he went, rather smugly, to bed. We are developing an alarming habit in the West of talking the talk being sufficient without having to do the more irksome task of walking the walk. Virtue has replaced duty, victimhood has replaced courage, and telling others to make their beds whilst your own bed linen lies strewn on the floor from this morning. Which brings me on to Liz Truss. As I watched her speech, I was reminded and stirred by some view of the conservatism of old, the slashing of red tape and taxes, taking on the anti-growth brigade, the sharp and wise U-turning cuts for the rich. Growth, 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 she thundered, rallying calls of the hard times ahead. But we are going to get there, optimistic old-school conservatism. A new way which would replace the peculiar one, second to midnight, of late-term Boris Johnson's floppy, greeny-weeny carry-servatism. I was feeling pretty good. But then came the dreaded words, net zero. I'm not much of a fan of zero anything, other than murder and things like that. This dislike was heightened greatly during my zero COVID days of not so long ago. To me, it smacks of an unhealthy coupling of unchallengeable ideology combined with reams of expensive bureaucracy, all to achieve literally zero. Now, that's not to say that I don't want a cleaner and greener planet. Every sane person does. But we have to get our energy from somewhere, and it seems that the current plan is to shut down our own energy supply, call our friends at Juanju Solar Panels and Wind Turbines Limited in China, and make a big order. Our Chinese chums quickly knock up a coal-fired power station next door and start sending panels and windmills by the boatload. See also Australian brown coal shipped half the way around the world to fuel our much-needed coal-fired power stations, rather than offend the eyes of those who cannot bear the sight of their Tesla being charged by our own dirty fossil fuels. Zero isn't optimistic at this juncture. It is a pipe dream. Not to mention that study after study shows that a very effective way to reduce carbon emissions globally, and for any of this to work at all, it has to be done globally, is to increase GDP globally. So if we can make the world richer, we will make the world cleaner. This is commonly called a win-win. In time, this innovative little species of ours will create energy that is clean and abundant, and we should aim high and for as soon as possible. But we have to deal with the now. More and more people are falling into energy poverty, so let's put net zero on the shelf for a while. Discuss becoming focused on energy self-sufficiency. I'd rather not have my energy supply reliant on the particular whims of a dangerous psychopathic Russian lunatic, for example. The future is right beneath our feet. Decades of it to keep us warm until renewables can fill the gap. And if the PM really wants growth, she should scrap net zero and invest in sustainable, renewable energy development. But don't scrap fossil fuels when we need them most. Otherwise, the only thing that will be at net zero this winter is the thermometer in your living room. So, I'm asking you, is it time to actually scrap net zero once and for all? As usual, let me know your thoughts by getting in touch, emailing me at farage@gbnews.uk or tweet using the hashtag I always get it wrong, Farage on GB News. Right, as people head back home after the conference, we are analysing and picking over the leftovers and the bones with GB News political reporter Catherine Forster. So, Catherine, can you just sum up the conference for me?
It's been difficult. It's been divisive. It's been chaotic. New prime ministers normally come in, they have a bit of a honeymoon period. They often get a boost in the polls. You'd expect the party to be united round them, cheering them to the rafters. Unfortunately for Liz Truss and for Chancellor Kwasi Kwarteng, we've had the absolute opposite of that. Lots of infighting, lots of squabbling, and they, I'm pretty sure, will be very glad it's all over.
So you're saying this was a bad Tory conference for Liz Truss?
Yes. Yes, I mean, she came in, didn't she?
She did her best. I quite liked her speech up until she started talking about net zero.
I thought I thought she did well with the speech. I thought that was definitely the strongest moment of the week for her. So I think she ended on a comparative high. Obviously, it was quite short. She didn't want to rock the boat any more than she already had, but she did get a chance to outline her vision, outline why she was doing this, growth, 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 make the pie bigger for everybody so that everybody can do better, saying there's going to be disruption, change is hard, but we have no alternative. So I thought it was strong in that respect. The difficulty is, of course, that a lot of her own MPs are not with her.
And what did you make of the Greenpeace protesters? I quite liked the how strong they were. I was like, they've had their shreddies. They look great.
There was a battle. Honestly, I think it helped her.
Yeah.
Because the people in the hall were clapping the clap, you know, they were clapping, they were supportive, but suddenly these imposters appeared and everybody then was absolutely united with her and against them and getting them out. Obviously, it's been fabulous publicity for them, but I thought she did respond very well. She made a joke of it. She took it really well. It basically fed into her theme of against the anti-growth coalition. So I thought she did handle it very well.
And implying it was planned?
No, oh goodness, no. But I thought she did well, and she's not normally known for being a fabulous orator. But I thought it was
a general thumbs down
good
for you for the conference this
well,
time.
I don't think it hasn't gone as she would have wanted, because she wouldn't have wanted to have to, on the very first day,
roll back,
basically end up Monday morning doing a huge U-turn.
It's not leadership, is it, when someone rolls back because the press decide to tell you what your policy should be? It's the opposite of being a leader, in my view. But Catherine, thank you very, very much for coming. Right, that was GB News political reporter Catherine Forster. As mentioned, the Prime Minister's speech was interrupted by two doomsday cultist protesters. The duo unfurled a banner saying, who voted for this? The answer being the public. In terms of Conservative Party, maybe not Liz, that was the Conservative members. Anyway, Truss outlined her reasons for her economic policies. Take a listen at the momentous moment that happened.
And that's why I promised on entering Downing Street to act. Let's get them removed.
One of the men who tried to rip the banner away from the protesters joins me now, John Peach, a councillor in Peterborough. Hello, John, how are you doing?
Oh, good evening, sir. Very well.
John, which one were you? Were you the one that grabbed first, or did you finish the task?
I think I was probably the guy with the bald head at the back, and there was a man next to me, and then these two ladies, and all of a sudden, and it just takes you a minute or a second to think what's happening. These two ladies got up, put their flag up, and started shouting. I reached over to grab the bottom corner of the flag, and I did grab the flag from them and put it on the floor, but they were obviously very well organised, and they had another flag which they then put up.
That's not very
again, I
sustainable,
grabbed
is
the
it?
bottom corner of the flag and was sort of tugging it, but they were holding on very, very tightly, so I couldn't get the second flag off them or completely off them and onto the floor. But by that time, the security people had arrived and took them off.
Perhaps they should have recycled the first flag That would have been better for the environment. Now, do you believe in the right to protest, John?
I do, yes. But the people in the auditorium were there this morning. A lot of people. I queued for over an hour to get in the auditorium, and we wanted to hear what Liz Truss had to say. So there was plenty of opportunity to protest, and in fact there was protests all week outside the conference centre, peaceful protests, and that was fine.
Well, John, thank you from a grateful nation. Right. Moving on, John Peach there, a councillor from Peterborough. Rounding off our Conservative Party conference conversation is the wonderful David Maddox, political editor of The Express Online. David, how are you doing?
Hi, Laurence. Good, thanks. Great to see you.
You too. What did you make of the whole thing, the whole shebang?
Well, I think car crash is often used to describe disasters in politics, but honestly, that conference had been a car crash. It would have been a motorway pile. I mean, it was from Sunday all the way through to yesterday evening with all the different ministers even and the U-turn and everything. It was an absolute disaster. You know, she should never have caved into Michael Gove, who now has a license to do what the hell he wants. And apparently none of her cabinet want to stick to the party line or agree with one another. So it was catastrophic, really. And, you know, the talk up to yesterday evening was whether she would, you know, last 10 days or not. I think she's pulled it back a bit with the speech, but I think she's only bought herself time at the moment. It was a good speech, but she's bought herself time.
Yes, Captain Stab You in the Back Gove is always ready to do a bit of backstabbing, isn't he?
The assassin in chief for the team. Yeah.
Do you not think that that she brought the party faithful back to her with the speech? You know, I watched it, and I don't trust any politicians, and I watched it and I thought, you know, she does a good job, and she's doing something risky, which you know, thank goodness for once a politician is going, right, I'm gonna put the future of our country in the hands of the people rather than in the hands of the politicians.
Well, actually, I think she's highly principled. I think she's I mean, you know, from a personal and kind of generally an Express reader, I'd imagine, point of view, her policies are bang on. I think the tax cuts were good. The idea that you bring wealth into the nation, that you grow the economy is good. But it's the first time we've actually heard Conservative principles from a Conservative leader, I would say, since Margaret Thatcher was ditched by the Wets in her party in 1990. So, you know, it's all very good. She's got to learn, though, that she has to prepare the way for some of her more controversial policies, lay the ground a bit, and then stand up to people like Michael Gove. She can't cave into them. I thought, yeah, I think you were right. I think it was a good speech. I actually think you're a little bit unfair to her on the net zero thing. I think she's paying lip service to it just to kind of keep the Green lobby with her own party happy. She's announced that they're going fracking again. She's announced that we're getting North Sea oil and gas again. I think there's a lot of positives around the kind of long-term aim of nuclear is the right way instead of relying on these ridiculous turbines and panels. So actually, I'm quite optimistic on that side as long as she survives.
You're right. I was a bit hard on her, but I just think we need to ditch this word net zero. I think it's ideological and stupid, and it doesn't belong in any Conservative's mouth. Anyway, David, thank you so much. David Maddox there, political editor of The Express Online. Right, coming up after the break, I'm going to speak to the woman taking on the NHS over what she says is forcing racist ideology. Speaking of race, is the Duchess of Sussex wrong about her latest comments about Hollywood's portrayal of Asian people in films? God, she's fun, isn't she? I'll talk to the very successful journalist Andy Ngo about it.
Weekday afternoons on GB News, we've got the whole of the UK covered. From 12 to 3, it's GB Newsday with me, Mark Longhurst.
And me, Gloria Di Piero. You'll get the very latest on everything that's been going on across our great nation.
And from 3 till 6, watch out for GB News Live with me, Patrick Christys. I'm not here to mess around with all the biggest topics and guests. You will always be up to date. GB Newsday and GB News Live from 12 p.m.
Only on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello there, it's Eamon Holmes here from Breakfast on GB News. We're not just on your television and your screens, you know.
We're on DAB plus digital radio, so you can listen to your favourite shows on the move.
If you've not yet listened to GB News Radio, it's very simple. We're on your radio player and tune-in apps, on your smart speaker, phone or tablet, or online at gbnews.uk.
Take us with you wherever you go. GB News Radio.
You never have to miss a moment of the People's Channel.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday. And there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch.
You've been cancelled. Join the club.
Oh my goodness me. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
Hello, I'm Simon Evans. Join me on GB News for Headliners at 11 p.m, where I'll be joined by two of the country's top comedians as we take a look at tomorrow's newspapers tonight. If it's a big story, we'll be covering it, I guarantee, but we'll also have some fun along the way. That's GB News Headliners at 11 p.m. We won't put you to sleep, unlike some of the other paper review shows out there. So join us, 11 p.m, 7 nights a week.
Mark Steyn Show, we cover the stories a lot of people are scared even to mention. The stuff that really matters with some of the world's biggest thinkers.
Now is his opportunity to kind of take the steering wheel of history.
Break away from the flop at 8 o'clock on GB News with the Mark Steyn Show.
Welcome back. Earlier, I asked you, is it time to scrap net zero once and for all? And you've been getting in touch. One viewer says, no, unless you want kids choking on CO2, but plants like it. Another says, why scrap it? Why not just push the date back and build up the clean technology till then? I couldn't agree with you more. Another viewer says, the Conservatives should scrap the net zero targets and go for a net zero immigration policy instead. I like that sort of Conservative sometimes. Anyway, Jane says, absolutely, this is just not affordable. We are the clean air nation, no need for it. There you go. Ryan says, absolutely, net zero and the green agenda were the main causes of the energy crisis. Well, that and the cost of lockdown crisis, but let's not go there, we've moved on. Don't forget, the best way to get in touch is by emailing me at farage@gbnews.uk or tweet using the hashtag Farage on GB News. I got it right. My next guest tonight is a Christian nurse who is suing the Tavistock and Portman NHS Foundation Trust, alleging discrimination on the basis of race, religion, and philosophical belief, as well as the victimisation and harassment. Amy Gallagher objected to attending lectures that were based on confronting the reality of white privilege. Yawn off. Other lectures included a discussion on the basis of Christianity as a religion being racist because it's European. Yes, someone needs to do their history there. A spokesman for the Tavistock and Portman NHS Foundation Trust said, as a trust, we have made a public commitment to work to become an anti-racist organisation. Here to discuss with me further, Amy Gallagher. Amy, good evening.
Good evening. Thanks for having me.
To the non-insane people in this world, could you give me a quick summary of what happened?
Yeah, so I'm a nurse. I'm training to be a psychotherapist at the Tavistock. So I was in my third year of training and I got sent this lecture called Whiteness, a Problem for Our Time.
Whiteness, a Problem for Our Time?
Yeah, so it essentially said that all white people are racist and it used phrases like white ignorance, white fragility. It's basically critical race theory. That's what it was, a whole hour. And it wasn't presented as a debate or a theory. It was presented as though this is true. So I responded to this and just simply said, you know, this is an ideology. It's actually not part of clinical psychology or psychotherapy. And we need to be aware that not everyone likes these ideas, which I thought was quite a mild, reasonable response. I got pulled into a meeting after that and I was told that essentially my views were inappropriate. and that I needed to do more learning about diversity.
Educate yourself.
Yes, educate myself. Yeah, exactly. And I was told, so I said, well, my view of not being racist is not judging a person by the colour of their skin, treating everybody equally. And they said, well, at the Tavistock, we see that as discredited and outdated.
Yeah, Martin Luther King. Who cares about him anyway? Anyway, just before we go on, I'm also joined tonight by Harry Miller, chairman of the greatest political party on earth, the Reclaim Party, and heading up the Bad Law Project. Harry, is being Christian racist?
No, of course it's not racist. But this is the problem with our modern foundations. They're like the religious fanatics who see the face of Jesus in a slice of toast. These people see hate everywhere. You raise your eyebrow in the wrong way, hate. You don't denounce yourself as a racist, hate. Hate is absolutely everywhere because, of course, as you said in your monologue earlier this week, hate has become a Ponzi scheme funded by the government, channeled through organisations like Mermaids and Stonewall, and unfortunately, it's then prosecuted by the police, who've become the armed wing of the woke. Is that clear enough, Laurence?
Let me run it by. Yes, I agree with you.
Yeah.
So, Amy, can I ask just on a personal level?
Yeah.
What, having been through something similar myself, just standing up to this thing, what toil has it taken on you?
Oh my God,
personally?
it's been exhausting. So it's been like a year and a half, almost 2 years of internal complaints, external complaints, investigations. And all the way through their complaints procedures, they've just maintained this dogma. They told me that I needed to interrogate whiteness. They put that to me in writing.
What the hell does that mean?
I don't know. Well, they don't know.
Whiteness. Imagine turning around to someone and saying, you really need to interrogate your blackness.
Yeah.
A lot.
Yeah, it's really racist. And
why is it okay to be racist to white people, Harry?
It's not okay to be racist at all.
Why is it societally acceptable to be racist to white people for some reason? And also, on top of that, particularly Christians, because, you know, let's not get into the whole spiritual thing here, but the command of God is you're all made equal under God in the eyes of God, so you're commanded not to be racist.
Yes,
so how can Christianity be racist?
Yeah.
When you know, you obviously have to follow their teachings in order to do it.
Yeah, I mean, I think these are people who are quite unhappy and resentful, and they need a group to scapegoat, and I think they think they can get away with scapegoating white people and Christians and it be seen as kind of moral or virtuous to do that because they think they're standing up to a kind of power dynamic or something like that. But it's not, it's just bullying. And yeah, it's been pretty awful. I haven't said anything that's unreasonable. They said that I'm not anti-racist enough. So, which kind of implies that you're racist, right?
Well, no, good. You shouldn't. No one should be anti-racist.
No,
you should
I
not
agree.
Racist. Anti-racist just goes. What's the opposite of anti-racist? Is racist.
Yeah.
So tell us what you're going to do, and Harry, tell us how the Bad Law Project is supporting Amy.
Yeah, so I'm suing the Tavistock for, like as you said, for racial discrimination, religious discrimination, and harassment and victimisation. Since I served court documents to them, they've bullied me further. They gave a speech to all the students saying that I've committed hate speech. They've suspended me, told me that I'm unsafe to see patients. It's just been harrowing.
You do look unsafe, to be fair. I'm spooked.
Yeah, so we've served court documents to them, we're going to be suing them. As far as we know, this is going to be kind of a precedent-setting legal case because we've seen quite a lot of noise in America around critical race theory, but not so much here. Our politicians have been kind of openly said that teaching white privilege is wrong, we shouldn't be doing it. But there hasn't been much action and there hasn't been any legal action. And the Tavistock is an NHS trust, it's a government-funded trust. This is not just a humanities course teaching different theories. This is a clinical training to work in the NHS, and they're treating this as though it's the truth and you have to follow these ideas. So, yeah, we're going to be we're going to be testing these ideas out in court, essentially, and seeing what the Equalities Act has to say about this.
Harry?
Yeah, so the Bad Law Project, we're looking for those seminal cases where we can go in and fight. We differ from the Free Speech Union in this. If you're a member of the Free Speech Union and you get into trouble, the Free Speech Union will come and rescue you from the mouth of the monster. What the Bad Law Project will do, will go in and slay the monster. That's the difference. That's what we're looking to do, Laurence.
I love it! May the fight back begin!
Yeah.
Right, well, now we must go to a spokesman for the Tavistock and Portman NHS Trust who said, we cannot comment on ongoing legal case. Thank you. Right, that's former police officer Harry Miller and head of the Bad Law Project alongside me, and nurse Amy Gallagher. We're going to win, guys. It's time to fight back. Okay, so next up, Meghan Markle has stated recently in an interview that was listened to by 9 people that she feels that movies like Austin Powers and Kill Bill present caricatures of women of Asian descent as over-sexualized or aggressive. She added that the toxic stereotyping of women in Asian descent doesn't just end once the credits roll. Does Meghan Markle have a point? Or is this just a woke, Z-list actress making a mountain out of a molehill to sell another book or make another Netflix program? To discuss this, I'm joined in the studio by award-winning journalist Andy No. Thank you, Andy, so much for joining us.
Of course, thanks for having me here.
Okay, talk me through this one.
So the title of the episode is The Demystification of the Dragon Lady, which sounds very philosophical and intellectual. But if you listen to just a few minutes of it, the issue that Meghan raises in so-called stereotypes in Hollywood of East Asian or Oriental women is she brings up Austin Powers. The third film in the series that came out in 2002 had a running gag from previous films, actually, where the names of 2 women in this particular case sounds like something very sexual, and the 2 women here happen to be Japanese girls. The point, I think, of that scene is that it's mocking the caricature. And now, 20 years later, Meghan thinks that she's being philosophical by raising, well, these are caricatures and it's offensive. Well, that was actually the point. And, for her, she brought on the guest of Margaret Cho to discuss the alleged hypersexualization of East Asian or Oriental women. And Margaret Cho is a Korean-American comedian who, for decades, the backbone of her public persona and her comedy is the fact that she's extremely hypersexualized and that she makes tropes about East Asian people and her Korean family. So the whole thing is typically what you expect, a lot of contradictions and I guess irony that Meghan doesn't appear to see in front of her.
She's never one to avoid jumping on a bandwagon, Meghan, is she? So do you think we're witnessing in America, which is never reported by CNN or any of the MSNBC or anything like that, systemic racial attacks on Asian people, East Asian people? Do you think Meghan is just jumping on the bandwagon of going, now I've got to try and get my Asian brothers and sisters on board? Or is she genuinely concerned?
She is jumping a bandwagon, obviously. She brought up, actually, crimes against Asian Americans at one point, but I think completely misinformed the audience. So she brought up the case of the shootings of the Asian sex balls in Atlanta in March of last year. Now, that mass shooting in which there were 8 people who were murdered, 6 of whom were of East Asian Oriental background, the media ran with the narrative that this was an extension of anti-Asian bigotry, discrimination from COVID, from Trump's rhetoric, and it started the campaign #StopAsianHate. Well, very quickly it emerged that there was no evidence that the suspect, now convicted gunman, had actually targeted these spas because of racial animus. In fact, based on what he said and all the evidence that's been known, is that he had a sex addiction and viewed these massage parlors that also is accused of having performing illegal sex services. That's why he targeted them. And in one of the 2 counties where the prosecutors have successfully brought convictions against him, the district attorney there in Cherokee County, Georgia, did say that there was no evidence of racial animus. But even with all this known, Meghan brought this up as somehow squeezing it into this podcast discussion about anti-Asian hate or discrimination. And it doesn't fit. And what's unfortunate is that one of the other guests on her show is Lisa Ling, is a very successful Asian American journalist, and there was no pushback by this journalist on misinformation. And it's also been reported that Meghan's hired a fact checker for her podcast series, and I would just say apparently that person's not very well. Not correct.
But there is, in America, there is quite a rising tide, if you look at the statistics, of demographic versus demographic of the attacks on Asian people. Do you think that some of this is her way of deflecting away from something that is statistically extremely relevant, as into which demographic is attacking the Asian community?
Yeah, so I can appreciate that this is a British audience who's watching, but actually even Americans aren't really aware of this because of the shying away in the mainstream media reporting actually on demographics behind many of the perpetrators of violent attacks on East Asians in American cities. It is over and over, and we're seeing this reflected in the data as well, that we're not seeing white supremacists carrying out these attacks. In fact, the perpetrators are disproportionately Black American, and that may be very uncomfortable for people to accept, but it is a reality, and we are doing a very big disservice to the victims of these assaults, robberies, beatings, etc., by not sharing their stories in the news because of the fact of this fear that it may enforce racial stereotypes. We just had out of Northern California a man, a Black male suspect, who's been charged over allegedly beating and robbing 14 Indian Hindu women in Northern California, robbing them of their jewelry. I think if the suspect had been white, this would be one of the biggest stories in America, given the string of attacks. But most Americans are probably aren't aware that it happened once, much less 14 times.
They need to unplug from the propaganda machine and get with the stats. Andy No, thank you so much for joining me. That was Andy No, their journalist and social media influencer. Right, now it's on to my What the Fox moment of the day. Elon Musk has performed a U-turn on his decision earlier this year to walk away from a $44 billion acquisition of Twitter and is now back to take over the social media platform. This is great news for those that have been banned, Trumpy, as the Tesla CEO is now ready to bring back freedom of speech, that old chestnut. The likes of Mr. Trump will be back in no time under Elon's new look Twitter, where US politicians are able to voice their opinion alongside the likes of spokesmen for the Taliban. That's freedom of speech for you. Now, some more of your reactions to my question tonight. Is it time to scrap net zero once and for all? David says, suspend net zero for 20 years. Amen, David. It makes sense, doesn't it? Until renewables are ready. Mark says, net zero should be scrapped for more ambitious emissions reductions. Joe says, yes, please, and don't forget to find out what the supporters of net zero's real objectives are, as I suspect they're anti-capitalist and anti-people, plus globalists with you there. John says, cancel net zero now. CO2 is vital to life on Earth, and we need more, not less. We do. Trees love it, I'm told, in science at school. Elizabeth says, yes, we should shelve the net zero agenda. We should instead get our gas and oil fields up and running, build up our nuclear power, and use our coal. Everyone would be happier, wouldn't they, if we were just optimistic? Right, coming up in the GB News Tavern, the doors are open, and we will be speaking to former acting White House Chief of Staff, Mick Mulvaney. Grab your drink and join us after this.
Weekday afternoons on GB News, we've got the whole of the UK covered. From 12 to 3, it's GB Newsday with me, Mark Longhurst.
And me, Gloria Di Piero. You'll get the very latest on everything that's been going on across our great nation.
And from 3 till 6, watch out for GB News Live with me, Patrick Christys. I'm not here to mess around with all the biggest topics and guests. You will always be up to date. GB Newsday and GB News Live from 12 p.m.
Only on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello there, it's Eamon Holmes here from Breakfast on GB News. We're not just on your television and your screens, you know.
We're on DAB plus digital radio, so you can listen to your favourite shows on the move.
If you've not yet listened to GB News Radio, it's very simple. We're on your radio player and TuneIn apps, on your smart speaker, phone or tablet, or online at gbnews.uk.
Take us with you wherever you go. GB News Radio.
You never have to miss a moment of the People's Channel.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch.
You've been cancelled. Join the club.
Oh my goodness me. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
Hello, I'm Simon Evans. Join me on GB News for Headliners at 11 p.m, where I'll be joined by two of the country's top comedians as we take a look at tomorrow's newspapers tonight. If it's a big story, we'll be covering it, I guarantee, but we'll also have some fun along the way. That's GB News Headliners at 11 p.m. We won't put you to sleep, unlike some of the other paper review shows out there. So join us, 11 p.m, 7 nights a week.
Right, favourite time of the evening. The GB News Tavern is now open and it's time for Talking Pints. It is my pleasure to be joined by former acting White House Chief of Staff under President Donald Trump, Mick Mulvaney. Welcome,
Hello.
Mick. Cheers.
Cheers to you. Thank you for having me. Thank you for the beer.
No worries. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. You know, I've never had this before. I heard it's pretty good.
Guinness. Don't have too much of it. It's my only clue. For dietary reasons.
I've been drinking it since I was 12.
Really?
Oh yeah, and it's low cal, by the way. You can drink as much as you want. It's low cal, it's low alcohol, it's low carb. It's good for you.
You've just heard that from a very important person in politics. Yeah. So I spoke to the Don last night.
I saw that. Nicely done.
On day 5 of my television presenting career.
It's all downhill from here.
Is it?
Starting tonight, yeah.
Okay, let's just try. Anyway, so what I sensed when I spoke to him, what I sensed when I watched him throughout his presidency was how affable he was with people. So I'd end up, sort of falling asleep to YouTube, and I'd get these sort of things of him in the Oval Office greeting people. He seems like a genuinely nice guy, if has a sort of slight gap between brain and mouth that doesn't need to be filled in.
You know, the man has his strengths and his weaknesses. We all do. He is a billionaire man of the people, which has always stunned me because I'm not either of those things. I saw him, if he walked into this room today, he would be unlikely to shake your hand. Okay? At the same time, when we went to go visit the border one time to watch them building the wall in San Diego, we were an hour late to leave because he shook the hand of every man and woman on the construction site. He's a really unique human being, really unique personality. He does have that sort of charisma that a lot of great politicians and great leaders have.
Is he? So does that conundrum, as the leader of the most powerful nation on earth, and I was talking to him obviously because I'm fascinated by this idea of deterrence that America seems to have lost in the last couple of years. Is that sort of unpredictability a great quality in a leader, or as well as a great hindrance in a leader?
Go back and look at our history. There's a famous passage or a famous piece of our history where Ronald Reagan was supposedly thought he was off the air on the radio, and he said, this is during the height of the Cold War, Congress has banned the Soviet Union, the bombing starts in 5 minutes. And that message went out as a precursor to his meeting with Gorbachev at the time. And if you read the biographies of Reagan 20 years on, he did it on purpose in order to give that sort of, that impression of unpredictability, because it sort of keeps your enemies and your competitors off balance, and Trump knew it just the same. It's not a surprise, I don't think, that the Russians invaded Crimea under a Democrat politician and invaded Ukraine under a Democrat politician and didn't invade while Donald Trump was president.
So now we're heading towards the midterms, and people are talking about a red wave. And do you think that's going to happen?
Yes and no.
In the House, but not in the Senate.
I think that's the difference. I think they both do well, but the Senate is more of a question mark right now than the House. Statewide races, which is what the Senate is in my country, you have to run for an entire state. So California has 2 senators that has, I think, 54 members of the House. A statewide race is different than a more local race, so you're going to get a different dynamic anyway. But this year, in addition to that natural sort of influence, you've got a situation where we've got some new people running. We have a guy running in Georgia who's never run for office before, a guy running in Pennsylvania, Ohio, Arizona. They're supported by the former president, by President Trump. They did very well in a primary with his support, but they're not experienced in terms of running for office. So we have rookies running for these offices, and there's some of them are challenging, and some of them are behind right now.
So is that J.D. Vance in Ohio?
Yeah, it's Vance in Ohio, Oz in Pennsylvania, Herschel Walker, the former famous football player in Georgia, and a guy named Blake Masters in Arizona.
Right. So in terms of, for me, what I see going on in America is the Dems want a bogeyman, don't they? The January 6th Commission, to me, to have two Republicans on it who are both about to be out of a job, and it's not a bipartisan commission. It seems to me a piece of theatre, and America is losing love for it. Is Trump going to damage America by standing again? And should the agenda, the MAGA agenda, the more optimistic agenda, flow more clearly through someone like DeSantis?
Yeah, you've asked a bunch of different questions.
I know, I'm terrible at that. Day five. Day five.
That's all right. I'll pick one. The January 6th committee is absolutely biased. There's no question. Is it bipartisan? Sure. Liz Cheney's a Republican. Adam Kinzinger's a Republican. I serve with these people. They hate the president. Everybody on the committee hates the president. The committee is designed to make President Trump look really, really, really bad. I can't figure out if they really want to try and destroy him to where he can't run again, or if they want to encourage him to run again because they think they can beat him. But it has been a political sort of witch hunt. They hired a television producer to run it. We just found out last week they hired a television personality to write the introduction to the report. So here's a supposedly factual report being written in part by a left-wing television commentator. So it is political theater. It's part of where we are right now in the country. Are they out to get Trump? Yeah. Might they get him? Yeah. Could he win? Yeah. Could he lose? Yeah. And that's the one thing.
But who would he lose to?
Donald Trump could lose to himself.
Yeah, that's interesting.
No one voted for Joe Biden. Half the country voted for Donald Trump.
I thought he had the most number of votes of an American president ever.
And he did, except everybody was voting against Trump. So half the country voted for Trump, and the other half voted against Trump. No one voted for Joe Biden. It was a referendum on Donald Trump. And for the same reason that he lost in 2020, he could lose again in 2024. And he may well be the only Republican that could lose. The economy is so bad. The Democrats are in such a disastrous spot. Biden is such a weak president and announced recently he's thinking of running for president again, that it'd be hard to lose to these folks unless the referendum becomes about you and it's not about them. It's about Democrats. Republicans cannot lose. If it's about Trump, it's a 50-50 proposition.
So if you were advising him today, would you say let DeSantis through?
You don't let anybody through. By the way, DeSantis is not, DeSantis is the one who gets all the attention right now, but we have several senators, several governors who could be viable candidates.
You've got Mike Pompeo, you've got some amazing people who will stand, but leadership is a fine art of charisma, isn't it? And talent and intellect and instinctiveness and impetuousness and all that sort of stuff. DeSantis has made the calls right. As far as, you ask an English person, do they know who Ron DeSantis is? And they will go, yeah. Whereas, so he's managed to leak through. You've got Pompeo, who is super, super smart. But what have we got on the Democrat side here? You've got Kamala Harris, or Carmela Harris, or whatever it is. This is a lady who just repeats the same word over and over again.
She's not viable, and I think people forget she didn't make it. She ran in 2020 and didn't survive until the first primary. She dropped
got 1%.
Out. Yeah, I think it was less than 1%.
But and then you've got Gavin Newsom.
Gavin Newsom is that's California. You got a guy in Illinois who's probably not any good named Pritzker. You got a really good candidate in Colorado by the name of Jared Polis. He doesn't get a lot of attention internationally, but he did a really good job as a Democrat in a purple state, a swing state of Colorado, very capable, a gay Jewish man, so he checks enough boxes for the Democrats. Their bench, though, is very, very slim. Joe Kennedy lost a race in Massachusetts for Senate. He was probably the best and the brightest of the young Democrats, and he was made out to be not liberal enough for Massachusetts. They have destroyed their bench. They have no young talent. The Republicans have got 15 people under the age of 60 who would make really good presidents.
So the Republicans are actually, it seems to me like the Republicans coming from somewhere, whereas the Democrats are desperately trying to appease the squad relentlessly. And
they're old. I mean, look at their leadership. The top three people in the House are all over the age of 80. So both parties are getting ready to go through a generational change. Biden is the last of his generation to lead the Democrats. Trump is the last of his generation to lead the Republicans. They're both getting ready to go through this generational change. But what you see is the Republicans have a lot more talent.
What do the Democrats need to do I mean, they're in power now. Biden's, as far as I can understand, Biden's popularity rating is pathologically low. To have a functioning democracy, you have to have a sort of 47-53 thing going on.
Mm-hmm.
But if Biden is down there and the MAGA ideology is moving forward to the point where he's demonized the entire country that support the MAGA agenda as MAGA extremists. Yeah. How do we find our way back into the middle? Where are the sane Democrats? So you've mentioned this guy from Colorado.
Yeah, yes, I think it was, what do the Democrats have to do? I watched the segment you had with the young woman who is suing the NHS and so forth. That's a really good example in my mind of what's wrong with my country. The Democrats, as right-wing as the Republicans are doing, the MAGA Republicans, whatever the Democrats try to make them out to be, the left in my country is so much further out on the fringe, it's really hard to imagine. And they're driving the folks in the middle to the Republicans. That's what's driving this red wave right now. In addition to the economy and so forth, people want to talk about the economy. They want to know why gas prices are high. They want to know why food prices are high. And the Democrats are talking about men having babies. That's not an exaggeration. That actually happened.
Who would have thought when Twitter was invented we'd be having this argument?
Exactly. So you asked me what they need to do is wise up, but I don't think they're going to. The energy in their party is on the very far extreme left. They are running away from the middle even faster than the Republicans.
That is it's so nice to hear it from an American, because I listen all the time because I'm fascinated in American politics. Mick Mulvaney, thank you so much for coming in.
Laurence, good to see you.
Cheers to you.
Thank you very much for the brew. Appreciate it.
There you go. I should have guessed with the Guinness and the surname. Anyway, there's just a few minutes left to answer your questions in Outfox the Fox. Oh, no, I'm not good at this. I'm keeping Mick here to help me, though, which is good. So John asks, how did it feel getting to interview Trump? Well, I tell you, I'm a big fan. And I've always been a big fan, and I think that he made America great again. So it felt amazing, and I've changed my ringtone. The guys over there in the office have changed my ringtone to go, Laurence. Pretty good. Right. Mackenzie, age 7. Mackenzie, hello, Mackenzie. Happy day, man. Can anybody become Prime Minister? Right, that is the question we need to ask for the day.
I don't think I can.
Okay, I can answer this. Mackenzie, you're 7 years old. You've asked the question. I want you to try and become Prime Minister. You sound like an amazing dude. What a wonderful thing to do. Get out there and give your all. What a wonderful thing. One viewer asked, who was the greatest US president of all time? For me, Reagan Lincoln. For you?
I would do Washington, because he could have been a king. He could have remained president forever, and he gave up power voluntarily for the good of the nation, and I think that's pretty special.
I defer. Sarah asks, is it certain now that the next government will be a Labour one? No, I don't think it is. I think it's likely or possible that the next one will be a Labour-Lib one, which would be even worse for everyone. You'd have the Labour Party who don't know what a woman is, and the Liberal Party who also don't know what a woman is, so we're in deep trouble. Right, another viewer asks, what is your favourite takeaway? Mine is a pad krapal with rice without the fried egg on the top and some edamame with chili salt. What's yours?
Whatever comes up in the next 20 minutes, because I haven't eaten in 3 days.
OK, we'll get you some food after. Right, that's it. I'm done for today. And I just want to say from my own personal perspective, to any dads out there who haven't seen their children or been denied access to them, you're not alone. And we stand with you. Anyway, now it's on to Mark Stein. Mark, what have you got for us this evening?
Well, I'm toying with the idea of Mick Mulvaney becoming Prime Minister. You know, he could be Prime Minister, Laurence, because he was born in America, just like Boris Johnson. So don't let that stop you, Mick. Prime Minister Mick Mulvaney. We'll try to keep it going. Fabulous show from Laurence. Coming up in the next hour, boy, do we have all the fun stuff. The eco-apocalypse, grooming gangs, a corrupt constabulary, deathbed demographics. It's a laugh and a half, but don't blame me. It's the way of our world. Stick with GB News. It's all heading your way after the weather.
Evening, Alex Deacon here with your latest weather update from the Met Office. Still breezy tomorrow, but not quite as windy as today. Many places seeing sunny spells. For some, though, there will be a fair few showers. We've seen quite a bit of rain from this weather front today, zipping away from the southeast. Plenty of isobars still on the chart, hence why it'll still be fairly windy through the night and indeed for much of tomorrow as weather fronts approach from the northwest. Lots of showers around this evening across northern England, North Wales, but they should tend to fade. We'll always keep some outbreaks of rain going across western Scotland and particularly the north of Northern Ireland. But for much of England and Wales, dry and clear and quite a bit colder than last night. It was a cold front that moved through, hence why temperatures will be dropping down into single figures. So a fresher start on Thursday, but a beautifully sunny start for a good part of England and Wales. Quite a bit of cloud coming into Wales, northwest England with some outbreaks of rain, and we'll always see showers coming into western Scotland and across Northern Ireland, particularly here during the afternoon. Not many showers at all across southern England, eastern England, northeast Scotland with some sunny spells. Temperatures in the southeast may get close to 20 Celsius. Still feeling a little cooler because of the strength of the breeze. It stays fairly breezy during Thursday night. More rain crosses Scotland and pushes back down towards Northern Ireland. This is another line of rain, another weather front, which then sinks south on Friday. Ahead of that on Friday, a few more showers compared to Thursday. Parts of the Midlands seeing 1 or 2, and across southern England as well, ahead of this rain band, which will bring a spell of heavy rain sinking south across the country. Again, ahead of it though, temperatures with a bit of sunshine might get up to 18 or 19 Celsius, feeling cooler behind that because again, that is a cold front that scoots away as we head through Friday night, and this little ridge of high pressure at the moment promises most places a fine bright day on Saturday.
Coming up on Dan Wootton tonight, as Liz Truss delivers a do-or-die speech at conference, will she manage to stave off yet another Tory rebellion? I'll bring you the best analysis from political insiders and analysts, as well as my superstar panel. Former Daily Star editor Dawn Neeson, entrepreneur and activist Adam Brooks, and broadcaster Ashley